My name is Veselin Vachkov. I'm director of Strategeo. Strategeo has been around for already more than a year. It's non-partisan, independent think tank that has established itself as organizer of really intense public debates, which we usually do in cooperation with the AAU, and I would like to thank the university for their really support and hospitality. So yeah, I look forward to listening the great line of panelists we have, and I'm passing the mic to the president of Strategeo, Jan Macháček, who is going to moderate the discussion.
Thank you, Veselin, and thanks all of you for coming. Thanks the panelists. And I should say that we in the Strategeo Institute consider ourselves being classically classical liberals. So we are those who are refusing to give up the term liberal. We insist on saying classical liberal. But our friend Dušan Tříska recently said that it's a lost cause, that we should give it up, or I should give it up, that we are heading to this polarization of having only two groups, and we should live in peace with the fact that this term has been stolen, and that has been stolen by progressivists, left-wing socialists, whatever. It's been exported through the globalization from America. So liberals means these days that it is mainly socialist progressives. We are, but unfortunately, I have to promise to Dušan that we are refusing to give it up. And the reason I am speaking about it is that one of the principles of liberalism for us in Strategeo and for myself is that we are happy when people have different opinions and can freely exchange them. And you know that public debate recently more and more is closing itself into the bubbles, which are refusing to speak with each other, which are refusing to know each other's opinions. Not only these bubbles, it is also these like echo chambers, etc. So this is exactly not what we are going to do, and therefore, if we debate Donald Trump, we obviously have to have Trumpian here, and Trumpian, real Trumpian here is proudly represented here by Ondřej Hejma. So welcome, Ondřej. We are very happy to have you here. Okay. We have a Martin Weiss, who is a conservative, not exactly Trumpian. We have Petr Kolář, who doesn't particularly like Mr. Trump, but he also has his opinion. And we have Ondřej Jonáš, who is not only investor and economist, but among us, he is the only American citizen and American taxpayer. So we are really looking forward for his participation. Unfortunately, usually at this debate, there is a student from AAU represented here, like representing this younger generation, so that it's not only us old white men, which is also a name of the new podcast of Lidové noviny, by the way, which I think is quite funny. So we don't have at least young face, but she got sick, so we apologize for this. So I think I have a simple idea to have two parts of the debate, and first one would be devoted to domestic policies of Mr. Trump, both economic policies and social and cultural policies, something what is being called a cultural war is definitely also happening in the United States. Some kind of some people would call it even a revenge. So there was a revenge before, there is a revenge now. So we can speak about these social things. And in the second part, which is obviously more interesting for us in Europe and in Czech Republic, is foreign policy of Mr. Trump and defense policy and security policy. And we would like to understand it better during the discussion. So perhaps we could start with Ondřej Jonáš for this first part, because he is this American citizen. So how do you evaluate both economic and social policies, domestic policies of Donald Trump?
No. Now. Well, hello. Thank you for coming. I'm delighted that we almost have a full room. I did not expect to be the first to speak. It seems totally unnatural. How do I look at Trump's policies? Well, if you look at the stock market, which is something that Trump himself looks at very closely, we are at the highs. All the indices that we can look at have never been higher. Trump presents a very robust understanding of the presidency. And from my point of view, what is most interesting are some of the cases that await the Supreme Court, the highest court of the land, to declare whether Trump's tariffs are or are not legal, whether Trump's immigration policy, and especially the expulsion of immigrants, illegal immigrants, will stand or not. And perhaps finally, well, not quite finally, whether birthright citizenship, which is something that is in the US Constitution, the 14th article, with its very special historical setting. It's related to the Civil War and the fact that slaves needed to be naturalized or recognized as citizens, and their children as well. Whether birthright citizenship will survive the 21st century, I simply point out that no European country recognizes birthright citizenship for very good reasons, because you cannot expect somebody from Asia flying in their 8th month to give birth and to have the child recognized as a US citizen or a French citizen. In Europe, I believe only the UK and Portugal recently, that means within the past 50 years, had something similar. And finally, what probably grates most of all is the war that Trump has declared on higher education, on universities specifically. My home university of Harvard, to the tune of $2 billion, is dependent very much on federal support for research, for in medical, in scientific, in the humanities. And it will be up to the courts to decide whether presidential authority to limit the distribution of funds will stand as Trump wishes to impose himself. You will recall that about 3 or 4 months before the last election in 2024, it was John Roberts, the head of the Chief Justice of the US Supreme Court, who came out with a very interesting case called Trump versus the US, which defined very broadly presidential powers. And in fact, said very quickly that, very broadly, that the president is not liable for any decisions that he takes in his official capacity, and that the outer limits of presidential power cannot be questioned, and effectively said that the president is an institution to himself under the US Constitution. So, what is totally unclear even today are the limits, if any, on presidential power. And as we speak, people vote in New York. There, the result seems to be a foregone conclusion. I think Mondami, well, all the predictive markets say that it's 90% certain that he will get elected. That in itself will be interesting. Then there are two very important governorships that are up for election, one in Virginia and one in New Jersey. If they go the same way, i.e. if both are won by Democrats, I think it will be a very strong signal. But likewise, if they fail to go for one party, it will be very interesting, and I will leave the interpretation perhaps up to discussion. So, success or failure, I think that you can question Trump's policies on many levels, moral. His method is not particularly to my liking. But I have to recognize that as pure power, he understands what political power is about. The extent to which he has captured the US imagination or the pulse of the nation is fascinating. Life in Massachusetts has not been changed a great deal. And yet, opinions are very polarized. The bigger frustration that my friends in Boston feel is with the Democratic Party that seems to be totally unable to mount a credible alternative. And Trump seems to escape forward. Each time he is almost ready to be entrapped with something serious. Like an escape artist, he escapes forward. So maybe here I should stop and give somebody else to speak, and I apologize for opening in such disorganized manner. But that's the way I see the lay of the land.
Petr Kolář, please, can I ask you to comment on Trump domestic policies at this moment, even though you are here mainly as a foreign policy expert, obviously, but you definitely have some opinion on what is happening in the US.
Well, you once you introduced me, you said that I don't like Mr. Trump very much, and that's true. I don't like him because I like the United States. That's my second home, and I really love this country. And I believe that the leadership of Mr. Trump is not what the United States deserve and what we deserve. I mean, us as allies of the United States. You ask about the domestic policy. Well, I have only a few observations. It's still this year. Yeah, this year when we were with my son and friends in Washington, D.C. for the conference organized by one think tank I'm aligned with. And I have to say that for me was a quite shocking situation when my Republican friends, when we were debating the situation in the United States, and I asked them about Trump and his administration and the members of his cabinet, what they are saying and how we should understand it, that they were looking around in the room and started to whisper. Something what I didn't expect that could happen in the United States, that the people would be afraid to express freely their view. I thought that this is sort of something what we had here during the normalization or something like that, but not the authoritarian regime or totalitarian regime, but the fear of expressing freely what they think. And they are Republicans. They are my Republican friends, who only one who was not afraid to speak quite loudly was Jan Brzezinski, the older son of Zbigniew Brzezinski. By the way, it's quite interesting that in this family, Zbigniew was Democrat, but and his younger son, Mark, is a Democrat too, but Jan is a Republican. So they have it in the family quite wisely divided, division of labor in the family. So that was the first moment when I realized that something is really going bad, and I have to explain why I don't like Mr. Trump. It's quite personal, because, as I said, I like the United States, and my hero in the US politics, or heroes, were Ronald Reagan and John McCain. And when Donald Trump said about John McCain that he is a crock because he was captured he allowed the Vietnamese to capture him. And I have heard it from the man who escaped from the military service because of some medical excuse. I have to say that for me that was too much to swallow and digest. The fact that Donald Trump is fascinating person for many Americans is for me surprising, but honestly, when I think about it, it's not so much surprising when you see it in the context and when you see in some sort of development in the United States. The fact is that when I served as the ambassador to the United States, a lot of people told me, these immigrants, this is maybe too much. You know, they are coming and they are not paying taxes, they are not paying the social and medical insurance, and they are getting everything free, free of charge, and we Americans, we have to pay for it. So there was a first signal that there is something wrong, and then the United States is not anymore the country which is widely open to immigrants without exception. Then there were some big issues, big problems. Of course, it started with 9/11. Then when the United States and Americans realized that they are not so safe as they were all time told that they are. Then, of course, the financial crisis and COVID and many other problems the United States and their citizens had to face. And then, of course, the aggressive approach of some leftist liberals, so-called woke or the cancel culture people, who were pushing some issues too much, too fast, too forward. And I realized that my American friends, a lot of ordinary Americans, they are not getting it. They don't understand why, for them, the LGBTQ, for example, issue should be the number one in their daily agenda. Well, and there were many other things they didn't simply get. They were not accepting it as a big issue for them, for their ordinary daily lives. And I could continue about the political correctness and other things which were maybe in some circles of American people perceived as too premature or too artificial, and they felt like that this is imposed up to them from above, and they had no chance to somehow adopt it and really accept it. So this was the development which led to something what could happen there when people are afraid to express their views. And I felt it sometime personally when it was quite curious, and I felt it like funny, but then it was really bad. For example, when I was shopping before Christmas in Seyville, close to our embassy, And when I paid my bill, and I said to the cashier, Merry Christmas, she was pretty surprised, look around, and then she said, Merry Christmas. And I said, and I realized that I should probably say Happy Holidays, because Merry Christmas is something what is not already, and that it was in time of Obama when I said it, something what is not forbidden, but it's not correct. So these things led to the situation where people were looking for somebody who can speak openly and just on behalf of them about some things which were not for them at that time normal. And suddenly this big guy with a very specific way of expressing his views with quite expressive vocabulary came there, and he fascinated people. So now when I see some of his videos done by artificial intelligence, where he's expressing his view about the demonstrations in Chicago or in the United States, I would say, it's probably not my United States already. You know, this is a different country that I knew before when I was serving there. And I have many other observations and points, but I could speak hours and hours about it. I would finish my introductory remarks by saying that I still hope that Mr. Trump would step by step understand that his policy of tariffs, by the way, I was very much in favor of TTIP. You know what's that, TTIP? Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, where the European Union and the United States should have as much open space for doing business without barriers. So the tariffs and the attacks against his opponents, the things which he's saying, for example, about Joe Biden, who is severely sick with cancer, that this is not something what would help him to be popular and to be the most, from point of the history, recognized American president, but it would put him to the black hole of the history. So I still not losing my hope. On the international policy, we can speak about it later. Then I see some positives, and I would like to emphasize them. But in the way how he is, as a president of the United States, is behaving at home, honestly, I don't see much positives.
Thank you very much, Petr, and I would like to ask Ondřej Hejma now for his first intervention. Thanks.
Okay, hello. Maybe I should start by introducing myself a little bit because I was labeled a Trumpian by Honza. So let me explain how that happened. I was born in this town. I'm Czech. I live here. I've lived here all my life. And way back in the 60s, there was one very charming lady already known around town, wonderful woman, great skier. And this lady went on to marry a very rich American who turned out to be Donald Trump, because this lady was Ivana Zelničková. So that something brought Donald closer to me, because he was like one of our guys. You know, we all liked her. She was good looking, great skiing, and Donald got her. So we think, okay, he got her, but he's one of ours. He's our guy. Then long time nothing. I completely missed his TV career. It was not available here. Nothing. And then I noticed him as a tabloid person who got divorced and married and scandals and bankruptcies and whatnot. And then I think it was like April 2016, I saw on YouTube Donald Trump speaking on foreign policy. Imagine this person who knew about casinos maybe and real estate, all of a sudden he was there delivering a wonderful speech on foreign policy. I truly liked it, and I liked especially the part in which he explained that the hegemony of the United States is over, that he will not export ideologies and let everybody do what they want. And that was something that I liked. So I said, okay, I'll watch this guy. I'll watch this guy. And I've been doing just that. And here we go in 2025. And it's been a decade with Trump. People don't realize this. It's not like first year of his presidency. No, he has been around for 10 years, and he has left a major mark on America, whether we like it or not. And so I think he's a very unusual president. Sometimes I think it's even unreal. I can't imagine that someone like that exists even. You know, but he's a larger than life, some say. But I think it's remarkable. It's admirable in a way, and I think the very fact that he won the U.S. presidency not once but even twice, despite all the things happening in between, is incredible, and that's why I sort of. Not admire him, but I'll say I'm a fan. Speaking in musical terminology, which is close to my heart, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Donald Trump, I'll admit that. So, okay, so that's just to introduce how what's between me and Donald Trump, because I was called a Trumpian. So, to the point, when we look at what he has done domestically, there's very little I can really say because I don't live in the United States. I don't travel there anymore so often. So it's something that I read or hear and get from you know the internet and so on. But I just listened before coming here. I listened to his inauguration address, and what I can say is. He did not surprise me. He did not surprise me. He fulfills his promises. What he said in that address, in that speech, is what he's doing. And so domestically, I think the major achievement, I would say almost indisputable, is the closing of the border. He promised that. I didn't believe he could do it, not without the wall, which still does not stand, but he did it, and I think it's again admirable. And I was dreaming that maybe Europe could do something like that one day, but it's not happening, and we see why, because it's very difficult. And Donald just did it, which is amazing. So that would be the first thing. The other thing I think he did quite well, but that belongs to the other chapter, the foreign policy. I think his peace initiatives are, however crazy they sound, and when he talks about them, it's really it's almost funny. But he did achieve some sort of a peace in Gaza, right? He did that, for whatever it's worth. I think that's an amazing achievement. Azerbaijan, Armenia, again, a tough nut to crack, and he did it. You know, there are other wars that probably didn't exist when he settled them, but that's something else. So I think that's another thing that he does. And about the tariffs and the economic policy, which is extremely important, probably decisive, because I will defer that to the experts here. I will not speak about tariffs. Donald, of course, thinks that they bring a lot of money to America, and if the Supreme Court approves it, I think it's going to be okay for America. And I think that's the tariffs are, by me, they're okay. Whether the investment that the foreign companies promise, he says it's 15 trillion, whatever, dollars, that could also be interesting. And, you know, and to finish this part, I will basically say that what I like about him is that he is attempting the impossible. He's attempting to turn back time. He wants to bring the good old America that we all somehow remember. He probably remembers differently than Mr. Kolář, but I think that's what he does. Turn back the time. He's a true reactionary. He's not a revolutionary. He's not a counter-revolutionary. He's a reactionary. He wants to take it all back, and that is mission impossible, I think. And you know, I'll keep watching him and see what he does. I would say so far, so good.
Very much, Ondřej, and now Martin Weiss.
Well, it was interesting to hear Ondřej Hejma to say that he is a fan, because Donald Trump, I think, can you hear me? Yeah. Donald Trump really has charisma that hasn't been seen in politics in the Western countries for quite a long time. And for better or worse, I think we'll see more of such figures. There's something almost supernatural about the hold he has on the imagination of the American public, or part of the public that are his unshakable supporters, I think. Well, the other part too, they love to hate him. They simply cannot. Both sides can think almost of anything else. As for there were such figures in the past. My feelings about Donald Trump is he makes me feel bipolar, as the fashionable word has it. Sometimes he drives me mad sometimes, and then I remind myself how fast time flies, and things really move faster these days and are forgotten very quickly. The madness of the summer 2020, the summer of the Black Lives Matter, is almost forgotten now. And the madness of the immigration crisis of the first part of Joe Biden's term is also almost forgotten. I am ready to be surprised, but so far I think it's a mixed business, his domestic politics. The immigration policy is something that probably had to have come in some form. It's not much a change of policy as a struggle of two unwritten constitutional legal dispensations. They are simply a part of America who thinks that it generally is a right of every person on earth to come to the United States and settle there. There's part of America that thinks that it's not. And the second part has won, and Donald Trump went about it very forcefully, and the way that message spreads to the areas of potential immigration, that it doesn't work anymore, that they will really deport you, unlike before, is probably the only way the immigration can be tackled more, much more than any legal measures, any official information campaigns you could launch. He does it too forcefully for my taste. He, well, as we all can see, he likes the TV shots of soldiers in the streets of cities. It's obvious he likes it. He fell in love with military parades when he saw them in Europe. People say it's un-American when he wants to have these military parades. Well, maybe it is un-American, but he saw it in France, where Emmanuel Macron invited him. So America is changing sometimes in the way that that doesn't maybe sit well with the ideas of the American founders and of that generation when you are steeped in that literature or when you that founding era or the Federalist Papers, stuff like that. It's a bit different. You could claim that he was the Donald Trump is a kind of figure that the founders warned the American, and then maybe they were eras of more forceful presidency, like Andrew Jackson. It's not by accident that Donald Trump likes him, to the extent that he knows so much about American history, or people around him like him in a way. And when you read a bit about the New Deal era, about Franklin Delano Roosevelt presidency, well, he made very forceful changes in the American constitutional dispensation, in the way the executive functions, that brought reactions that were not that dissimilar from the reactions that some Trump moves have elicited. It will be, as Ondřej, Jonáš mentioned, very interesting to follow the tariff case at the Supreme Court, where I think oral arguments started today. There's always fear in the air that the Trump administration may simply break basic constitutional norms. He may run for a third time, which I think is not very probable for practical reasons, or he may defy the Supreme Court. You may notice that Donald Trump and his people has been very aggressive in their rhetorics towards lower courts, but not towards the Supreme Court up to now. Maybe some people in the movement have been aggressive to some Supreme Court judges, Amy Coney Barrett in particular, but not Donald Trump. So far, he has obeyed the Supreme Court. Let's see how this decision will go, because there will be a very important setback for his agenda. I'm not happy about the tariff policy in general. It's obviously, as a Czech, it's hard to divorce my views of it as someone who feels the effects of the tariffs. But my opinion is that the roots of American deindustrialization can't be solved with tariffs. The roots are different. The roots are in the financialization of the economy, the overregulation of the economy, which drives the best talent towards Wall Street and Silicon Valley, areas where you can do stuff without moving atoms in the physical world, and without having to fight all the regulators. So it's difficult to build physical stuff in America. Well, here in our country too, obviously. And then trade unions, it's underestimated how much for instance, car industry was decimated by the trade unions. Absent other efforts, I don't see how tariffs itself could bring American industrial renaissance, and we haven't seen it yet. When you look at the employment statistic data, employment in manufacturing sector is in fact still going down. So, and consequently, the inflation is slowly going up. Apparently, Mr. Trump does. That's another thing that shows how fast we are forgetting. One of the things that did Joe Biden's presidency in was, together with immigration, inflation. We may see it yet again. I would maybe close by one political observation that the problem of the Democratic Party was that it was taken over by young radical ideologues who were able to spread their views over the social media and force conformity to their radical politics. It was politics that didn't appeal to the American public at large. Republicans are now in the process of doing something similar. There's really strong movement of very radical young activists that are I hear, staffing offices of many congressmen and executive agencies, whose views are not just ugly, like anti-Semitism, for instance. They are simply too radical for the American public at large. We may yet see how this plays out.
Thank you very much, Martin. Maybe I should add with the migration a little remark. As far as I know, I'm not exactly sure by the recent numbers, but definitely it was valid a few months ago that Joe Biden actually was physically deporting the same amount or even more people, but there was no publicity about it. There was no. So with Trump, the rhetoric is horrible, pictures are drastic or dramatic, and the result is, as you said, that people are really scared to come. But it's which is definitely interesting. But so let's go to foreign policy. I would like the panelists to touch definitely three topics or three puzzles, which are definitely puzzles for me. One is a question of chaos and unpredictability. Trump likes to say about himself, and he's fulfilling this promise, that he wants to be unpredictable. He enjoys to create some chaos. To what extent? Sometimes it can be helpful in foreign policy, but we should really speak a little bit more about it, when it is helpful and when it is not helpful and counterproductive. Actually, I can imagine with Taiwan, for instance, that if you say to Chinese you are unpredictable, that they wouldn't be sure, like if you would, which would be compatible with the strategic ambiguity, that mainland Chinese wouldn't be sure, like what you're gonna do about Taiwan. That's that might be some logic in it. So can a president of the most powerful country in the world be unpredictable and chaotic, and what are the advantages and disadvantages? Second question is, how come that he is so successful in Israel, Gaza, Middle East? We don't know if the peace will hold, but definitely hostages were released, and at least there are some chances that some phases of the peace plan would be implemented. And how come that it is in such a sharp contrast with this war in Ukraine and chances for having some ceasefire or peace there? As far as Middle East is concerned, there were a team of professional diplomats preparing it. There is no professional team as far as Ukraine is concerned. So how come there is such a contrast? So these are two topics I would like to touch, and maybe the third one, what is Trump's personal intuition? We know that there are really different kind of advisors. There are isolationists. There are people who believe that U.S. should focus all resources and energy to contain China, or there are people who speak about only Western hemisphere. There were rumors recently that there would be a new foreign policy doctrine published which will be speaking only about Western hemisphere. But in the end, it's Trump, like, and his intuition, and I'm afraid myself that he will focus about on deals, and these deals must be presented bombastically as success, and this is what he cares about. So he is not with isolationists, he is not with containing China people, he is not with Western Hemisphere. I'm suspicious that he wants to focus about deals, and perhaps he wants a Nobel Prize. But I'm speaking too much as a moderator, but I would like to all of you to touch these topics, and perhaps we can start the opposite direction with Martin now.
I'll take it. First about the deals. The Americans obviously have a deep understanding of Israel because of the long-term relationship and the presence of Jews in the United States. And so they understood what was going on there, and the rulers of the kingdoms of the Arabian Peninsula, they may be Muslims, but those rulers are very transactional people. So this is a mindset with which Trump and his people are able to do deals successfully. I think Russians and Chinese are different. They are ideologues, and Americans don't understand them that well. When Donald Trump speaks about how he's sure that President Putin would like to do deals and do business with the United States, no, that doesn't work. That's what Angela Merkel thought. That that Vladimir Putin wants to have a good business relationship with Europe. So I see this as a reason for the difference between approaches and successes, and up to now lack of success in those arenas. As for the chaos, it can be useful somewhere, less useful in other arenas. There's a guy, Undersecretary of Defense for Planning, I think, whose name is Elbridge Colby. He's a kind of Republican who was up until Trump years in the minority in the Republican or in conservative foreign policy circles because he was more of a realist. He served in the first Trump administration, worked on the National Defense Strategy, and then in the following years he hammered in his public appearances on a single topics. The Pacific Asian arena is crucial for United States at the expense of the rest of the world. And if we lose Taiwan, we lose other allies we have there, and Chinese hegemony over the Pacific arena is on us. We cannot afford that. We must cut our commitments everywhere else in the world to focus on the defense of our Asian allies to shore up our position there. Now he's again at the Pentagon and working on a new defense strategy, and is watching as his president just in the last, I think, 2 months. He entered the Israeli-Iranian war, but that was forced upon him. He didn't start that so we can put it aside. But since then, he started to amass carrier group on the coast of Venezuela, getting ready for a possible invasion and change of regime. He expressed an interest of getting back the Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan. Now, if you read Elbridge Colby's book, he mentions Afghanistan as one country that is not important to American foreign policy in Asia. Now he's tasked with getting Bagram back. And during the last week, Donald Trump threatened Nigeria with a military intervention to protect Christians there. And almost every week brings something like that. So this is the kind of chaos that's not very useful, and I'd love to see Elbridge Colby's comments on that.
Thank you very much. Petr Kolář now, or do you want? Yes.
Well, for me, the most important achievement of Donald Trump in foreign policy and related security and defense policy is the fact that he waked up us Europeans and he gave us a pretty sharp lecture that we have to take care of our own security and that we have to invest in that. And well, these 3, now 5%, it's something what is quite natural in the situation where we have a war on our doorstep, and we see that this war of Russia is not against the Ukraine as such. It's of course against the Ukraine, but this is against the so-called global West and against our civilization. Then I would say thank you, Mr. Trump. You gave us a good lecture. It was a wake-up call, cold shower. And finally, we realized that we have to take it seriously. It was not only him, there was the presidents before him who were telling us, guys, you should really take care of your security. You should not rely on us only. This is your interest to be secured and safe. And we took it as sort of normal part of the conversation between the European and American politicians, like it had to be mentioned, but well, in fact, we didn't take it so seriously. So this is great that we have it now, and I would say this is the, from my perspective, the most important achievement of Mr. Trump. Speaking about other questions you mentioned, you know, for me, I remember when I was the ambassador, we were debating with Madeleine Albright one of the sentences she used in her book, and she wrote there like, "We Americans, we are obliged to lead." And I try to explain her that this is, of course, something what we ask Americans to do, but it's quite hard to listen it from them, like that they are obliged to lead, that we are here to accept their leadership if we have some doubts about it. So I was always emphasizing the partnership. But now with Mr. Trump, partnership is something what is probably not in his vocabulary. Like if you, do you hear him to say the word ally? I'm not sure if he's using this word, if he knows the word. But what does it mean, ally? Try to check it, you know, in his speeches, in his public appearances, if he ever used it, ally. So I think that this is not the way of his thinking. You know, he believes that this is sort of neo-mercantilism, that he is here as a president of the only real superpower who should tell us how we should behave, and then they will lead because they are here to lead. Otherwise, we would have to accept that they let us alone. So this is one of the things where I would say it's also quite healthy and useful to think about it and to understand that if we want to have United States as our partner and ally in the future, that we should be also able to offer something. Not only ask them all the time to help us and to provide something for us, just to offer something. Was in the Pacific mentioned here, China. Okay, we are asking the United States to help us with Russia and with our security in Europe. Shouldn't we also offer something to the United States, speaking about the southern Chinese Sea and about China? That would be fair, I think. So for us, Taiwan is not only the question which is connected with the values. Of course it is, but because this is the democratic country and we should really do our best to prevent anything what could lead to the end of this democracy there. But we should also be able to say, well, if United States and Trump's United States are taking China as the biggest problem, okay, we are here to help the United States as Europeans with our capacities. And not only as Europeans, but speaking about the global West, there are countries which could be with us, like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, which is now realizing and just changing their security doctrine because they realize how China could be dangerous. So about the chaos, okay, I understand that chaos could lead to something good, but chaos is not the American word. It comes from the ancient Greek. So I don't think that the United States should really create the chaos. For me, the United States were always the country which is well, sort of the leader and guarantee of values and democracy, and which our civilization is based. And if they are creating chaos, or actually if the President of the United States is creating chaos to solve it finally, to clean it up, it's like a parody. I don't understand why they need to create the chaos in the relationship with China and then to go to China and to say, well, I had a great meeting with President Xi and we solve it now and everything is huge, beautiful, colorful, enlightened by sun. So it's of course something what I have a problem, personal problem, to take it as a professional seriously. Okay, if he doesn't know that the peace he created or he organized between Azerbaijan and Albania actually is pretty funny because it's not. It was between Azerbaijan and Armenia, not Albania. Okay, it could be as a joke, you know. I remember George Washington Bush, who when he came to Slovenia, he said that Slovakia is a great country. So, okay, so well, that it could happen, but I would say that for me it's quite painful to see that my dear United States is losing respect of its allies and its enemies as well. Speaking about chaos, well, in relationship between the United States and Russia, what's that? Is that chaos? Or is that just awkward misunderstanding of Mr. Trump, who believed that Putin is a guy with whom he can do some business? He absolutely didn't understand the Russian mentality and Putin's mentality. So then it could create chaos, but is it really in his power to solve it and to clean it up, this chaos? He is helping to create by his weak position. I would say if he wants to really do something positive, let's provide Ukrainians with tomahawks. Then we can really solve the chaos, which is on the eastern part of our continent. How comes, well, this is what I'm, so now actually I'm moving slowly to your second question. about Gaza and Middle East. Okay, they were the difference between Russia and Ukraine and Gaza and actually the Middle East is the fact that for Gaza there were real experts who were taking care of it, or people who really understand the region and who are able to negotiate with the different parts of this conflict. But, well, honestly, speaking about peace, it's probably too much. I think it's quite connected with his position as a president, and if he would leave the position, what probably once would come, then this, well, not artificial, but quite fragile peace would collapse. Because it's based on the fact that, well, he's using his personal power to push them into the corner, all sides, and once he will be not there, it would erupt again. And well, this is actually what I'm saying, that the difference between this peace in Middle East and what is happening with Russia. You see that this is sort of naivete or something where I hope still that he would wake up, you know, hope maybe Melanie would help him as Ivanka helped him in his first time when she told him about the situation in Syria, and then he ordered the missile strikes against Bashar al-Assad regime. So maybe now his wife would help him to understand the situation. But the hope I always have when he's going to move forward, and then he's doing one step forward and then two steps back. I am then a bit puzzled, and it's diplomatically said, puzzled, and then of course I'm getting nervous because it's not about the United States only; it's about all of us. So I would prefer less chaos and more strategy and vision.
Okay, thank you very much. It's just a little remark with Tomahawks. I'm also puzzled with Tomahawks, even if he is decided not to give Ukrainians Tomahawks. Why is he saying that? I can imagine that it would be much better if he says, maybe I would give them Tomahawks, maybe I will not give them Tomahawks. It seems to me certainly smarter.
Maybe he wants the Europeans to step up and give them the French Exocet or the German equivalent. I sense that Petr Kolář is annoyed with his Ukraine policy. The problem with the US is that domestic policy is often not easily separable from international policy and vice versa. And a case in point is the central bank. One of the things we haven't mentioned is the attempt by Trump to take over the central bank. You may have noticed that he's trying to push interest rates down by 200 basis points for no reason at all. Jay Powell is fighting in his corner and resisting. He fired Lisa Cook, which is yet another case that the Supreme Court has to address, because she, while she is also a governor, she has an executive function, and that is the supervision of the banking sector. So in fact, Trump has a very good argument for wanting to fire her. Finally, Martin Weiss mentioned the sort of made in America and how futile it is. There's an argument for self-sufficiency in areas such as pharmaceuticals. I think if you argue in the US that antibiotics should not be as easily held by China as the rare metals or rare earths, every American understands that medical products, medicine, pharmaceuticals need to have sort of local sourcing, or at least a more reliable source should the Chinese want to turn it into a weapon. And likewise with chips. Certainly no American will start making toys in the volume that the US consumes it. But one of the successes that we should mention of the first year is that the US deficit with China is down by between 25 and 30%, with the proviso that all statistics are suspect, because as you know, Trump fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, so nobody quite knows what is happening with the US, but even so, it's quite clear that trade is going his way, tariffs are having an effect, and especially the devaluation of the dollar. If, like me, you are dependent on your US savings, then the roughly 12% devaluation of the dollar since the beginning of the year is quite painful. And obviously that is helping exports, but it's also helping to boost the US stock market, because most multinationals, when they convert their overseas profits back to the US, in fact, can report higher earnings. So that is what is happening. As far as the 5%, forcing Europe to cough up at least 5% for defense, that is nice about our president. But what about our new prime minister? And how would you suggest that Trump should sanction what Babiš is saying on this front? I mean, as an American taxpayer, I sort of wonder. So you gave the example with the Tomahawks. There's nothing that stops the Europeans from stepping up. It's nice of you to complain about what Trump isn't doing, but my reading of Mark Rutte and Ursula von der Leyen is finally recognizing that after many, many years of acting as a black messenger, it is time to step up. And I was happy to hear you say that yes, Europe must step up and take security more seriously. But taking security seriously, for me, implies chip production in the US, pharmaceutical production in the US, and slowly weaning itself from the dependence on rare metals and rare earths, all the stuff that was subject to the agreement that Trump made with the Chinese Premier Li. Fentanyl, you know, good question. That's one of the things that Trump addressed most directly. We don't have exact statistics. You know, by the nature of the beast, it's very difficult. Whether fentanyl deaths are down, I would like to know. But certainly the trade deficit is much better. And strategically, Trump is weaning the US from dependence on overseas to the extent that I mentioned. So we tend to view Trump's foreign policy through the lens of Ukraine. If you look at the Republican Party, there are roughly three streams. Those associated with Marco Rubio, the internationalists. That's the traditional Republican Party that says we should be everywhere leading and all the stuff that Petr Kolář would like the US to do but isn't doing today. Then there is the group behind J.D. Vance, the sort of hillbilly who believes that it's America first, down to the letter. You know, let's deal with poverty and all the social ills and difficulties that the US has. And the third group, finally, China, our biggest problem. Those people who believe that the US should drop all entanglements and focus on China. I was sort of amused to hear that the Czech Republic should help with Taiwan, my long-standing problem as a sailor. with Czech defense policy is that there is no navy, no admiral. But maybe that's Charles IV who is to be blamed for that because he lost us our sea. In other words, the view of foreign policy that you have it looks very different from the US angle. I heard more people complaining about the bombing of Venezuelan fishing boats and applying very questionable justification for doing so, because it was in international waters. There was no clear proof ever presented that they were smuggling drugs. We haven't even spoken about Greenland and some of the other foreign policy initiatives that Trump has undertaken. So that's just briefly my point of view.
We could definitely speak for hours about Trump and about all his ideas. When you mentioned that Europeans should pay for the okay, so it wasn't even discussed, but it is possible that he could say, okay, we would deliver tomahawks maybe, but Europeans should pay for it, but he didn't even propose it. But there is something happening, you know, that Germany delivered Patriots. It was confirmed yesterday. Brits also sent new deliveries of rockets, so some things are happening. But anyway, so Ondřej, floor is yours now.
All right, now foreign policy, international policy is a large order. It's the whole globe, and so I will try to focus on a few little things. One of them being the chaos. I actually disagree that that Trump would be unpredictable, terribly unpredictable, because I repeat, when you look at his election campaign, when you look at the inauguration, he does the things that he promised to do. So I think in that respect, in little details, he changes his position here and there, but that's logical because he likes boxing and all these fights, and there you have to get the opponent off balance, so he doesn't know what you're planning to do. So he's maybe adopting these tactics even in his political life, but that's just to say that I don't think he's all that unpredictable. That's point number one. Point number two, whether he is respected or not in the world. It's hard to say whether she respects him, whether Putin respects him, but I've noticed, as it was mentioned here, that Europe, all of a sudden, I would say almost surprisingly, respects him very much. Because we remember that before the election of Donald Trump, Europe was basically against him. Europe was behind Kamala. So, and of course he remembers this, and that's must be felt in his talks with Europeans, and the Europeans now are, you know, in agreement with him. Let's spend 5%. That's unthinkable 5 years ago. 2% was too much. Now all of a sudden 5% is fine. So I think the respect, at least from the side of the Europeans, is there. So it's not all that bad. Of course, the Ukrainian war is extremely difficult for me to judge, and I think I actually agree with something you have written. I read it today, and you said it, that Trump really hates this war because he doesn't like the Russians or the Ukrainians. He doesn't like them, all of them, you know. So he's just sort of letting it drag out, and that's maybe what causes the perception of unpredictability, because he talks to Putin, he sees him, he calls him, Witkov travels back and forth. A lot of action on the diplomatic front, but no real action on the ground. So I think that's because he just doesn't know what to do about this war, and my fear is that he is going to let it play out, that the law of the jungle might prevail in the end. And what was the third point? Yes, something that Martin mentioned, that everything that Trump does has to do with domestic policy. Even in international relations, he sees everything through the prism of the midterms, because the midterms are coming up, and that will be the decisive point of his entire career, maybe the whole 10 years. If he wins the midterms, he is on his way to maybe achieve something big, whatever it is. If he loses, it'll be the end of Trump, I think. So let's maybe, when we think about international relations, see it even from that point of view.
Very much, Ondřej. So unless some of the panelists want to react, yes, we will. Okay.
Okay, technical remark. I'm not sure if we as Europeans would be allowed to buy tomahawks.
You have exercised.
No, well, there, that's no, well, there was the quite clear expression of Mr. Trump, but correct me if I'm wrong, when he said, okay, you Europeans, you can buy whatever weapons you want from the United States, but tomahawks. We need them at home. We need them for our own security, and we don't have enough of them. First, he said that, well, we maybe will provide Ukrainians with tomahawks, and if you Europeans would pay for it, okay. But then he said, well, after the call with Mr. Putin, he said that he will not allow Europeans to buy it. So if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I think that this is correct assumption. And then about the respect, this is something what I learned in Russia, that these people in Russia, they respect you if they are afraid of you, unfortunately. And this is the case of Mr. Trump, I think, that we... Europeans are afraid of him, and they realize that they need to flatter him. So if they flatter him, they probably, once they saw the meetings, sittings of the cabinet, his government, when Mr. Witkov is sitting there and saying, well, from the time when the Nobel Peace Prize was established, never ever, nobody deserve it more than you, Mr. President. And then you see it as they sit around the table and they behave like in Pyongyang. This is like North Korean behavior towards Mr. Kim. It looks like that. So Europeans learned the lesson. After the incredible situation in Oval Office with President Zelensky, when he came there first time, people realized that they have to behave in different way. I love to see the face of Giorgia Meloni, for example. She knows that she has to flatter him. At the same time, when I see not the body, face language, it's something what speaks for itself. So I would say this is sort of respect which I don't like, because I like the United States, really. I would love to see that people are not just taking the president of the United States as a little kid, and they have to flatter him, otherwise he would shout at them and destroy all the pets they have. So then this is something different than the respect. So this is just the reading of his character. They realize that he is a narcissist, egomaniac who loves himself more than anything else, and that they treat him like a little kid. And this is not the respect. Sorry about it.
Okay, so...
Just very briefly, I agree that it's not real respect, that it's actually fear. I absolutely agree. It's not being said out loud, but that's what it is. As back to unpredictability, as this is sort of a joke on the sidelines. I have heard Steve Bannon, an advisor to Trump, founder of MAGA, in an interview with The Economist. He's sitting there, Steve Bannon, and he says, Donald Trump will have a third term and all those things. And he says, because Donald Trump is the vehicle of divine providence. So, you know, and the people from The Economist didn't blink, you know, they just went on. They didn't stop and say, what do you mean, he's supernatural or what? No, they just accepted it at face value. So the ways of the Lord are unpredictable, as we all know. So maybe if the Lord speaks through him, that's how it goes. That's how it goes.
Thank you, Ondřej.
I think the psychology here is that Trump understands political power much better than all these criticisms do. Why is he talking about a third term? I don't think it's
actually
because
not. He is not the only Steve
he
Bannon.
hasn't ruled it. He hasn't ruled it out. He has
But
specifically said that he will not
Yeah.
rule it out. And The Economist didn't challenge Steve Bannon because the moment that Trump concedes and says, this is my final term in office, he becomes a lame duck. And the political power just flows away from him to somebody else. Whereas today, he is in control. The Republican Party listens to him like nobody. Certainly, some of the scenes from the Oval Office are painful, to say the least. I would fully agree with Petr Kolář. But at the same time, they're all pulling in one direction. And if we swallow the form, which is sometimes bizarre and difficult to take, on substance, they are getting certain things done. And I would not want to belittle that. Tomahawks, I think, are an American-Indian invention. So, you know, if they don't want to give them to you, all you need to do is make your own. It's not that hard, and there are at least 3 European weapons that are on par with the Tomahawks. So it's not as if this were a unique capability like the satellite information system and the coordination on the battlefield, which Trump has not denied to Ukraine yet, maybe I should add, but certainly the reticence to supply some of the most lethal weapons to Ukraine, that was the policy of Joe Biden. He didn't want to protect the Ukrainian airspace. He didn't authorize F-16s, and I could go on and on. So after all, Putin knows quite well that if he starts threatening the Europeans with nuclear war, there are factions, including quite a few parties in this country, that run scared and are able to scare quite a large part of the population. So you cannot simply say, bad Trump, he doesn't want to sell us Tomahawks, which we would give to Ukraine. It's not as simple as that, Peter.
Thank you. Perhaps, Martin, do you have some remark about this, or should we open it?
Let's open.
Okay, so now it's time to open the discussion to your questions. If I could ask you please to introduce yourself and tell us on which panelist you are heading the question. And I am asking for questions, not for long interventions. Thanks.
All right. Do you hear me all right? First of all, I'd like to thank all 4 of you, or I assume 5, for your... I'd like to thank you first. My name is David Němec. I'm from the Czech Republic, but I lived 16 years of my life all over the world. I was actually at a previous debate as well. I lived in China, India, Russia. I lived in Malaysia, but also I finished my high school in the United States. And I think it's clear for all young people here that we kind of grew up, our political kind of experience is with Donald Trump, and our social media and everything influences that. And I've seen the different factions that play a role in both the left-wing and right-wing movement. My question is directed to Mr. Kolář. I just wonder, with these changes with Donald Trump, I think one of the things I've noticed is that it's a global movement. It's not just happening in the United States, it's happening in the Czech Republic, Japan, and lots of different places. And I wonder, as a diplomat, and I assume someone who worked with former governments, I hope you don't mind calling you part of the establishment, do you believe there were certain missteps perhaps made in certain governments pre-Donald Trump or Joe Biden or whatnot that kind of led to the rise of Donald and the way he reacts now? Thank you.
Well, thanks for the question. I definitely think that this is something what didn't come from nothing. This just fell down from the moon. I mentioned 9/11. I mentioned the financial crisis, real estate crisis, and financial crisis later on. I mentioned the COVID pandemics. So there were a lot of problems. Not the only United States, but all Western civilization, or let's call it global West, had to face. And the fact that people who were all time, especially here in Europe, thought that we are having just a bright future in front of us, nothing could destroy it. Francis Fukuyama wrote his End of History, like that the liberal Western civilization is winning step by step everywhere. And suddenly those problems occur. People were not ready for that. And the relativization of some values became also quite a problematic part of our huge problem. Speaking about some lessons we should learn and we were not learning, that was, for example, with Russia. We saw Mr. Putin as he's behaving. We have listening what he was saying, like that, for example, when Munich Security Conference in 2007, that he said the most terrible tragedy of the Western century, geopolitical, I should be correct, geopolitical strategy of the 20th century was the collapse of the Soviet Union, not world wars, not communism, Nazism, fascism, but the collapse of the Soviet Union. That was something what we should listen, and we should try to understand it. When he was, even before in 99, when he was taking the office from Yeltsin, he wrote the essay where he said something like that, well, Russia can survive only as a real superpower. And the West is corroded, led by strange people. I'm just paraphrasing, and then he said it later on. And I remember my exchange of views with Minister Lavrov, for example, like what you in the West, what you think, the democracies are something supranational, but well, your civilization is collapsing. And I look at him and I say, what do you mean we are collapsing? Yeah, because you have too many parliaments and you are too slow to make decisions. So we should take it seriously. Those signals were quite clear. Unfortunately, we were all time trying to use our goodwill to persuade Russians that we could be partners. And it was really one mistake after the another. And of course, there was a lot of hypocrisy also. We were asking the United States to guarantee our security. We felt quite secure because of the nuclear umbrella of the United States. At the same time, Germans were building the Nord Stream 2 and Nord Stream 1 to Russia, and we were providing money to Russian military industry, by the way. So all this cocktail, this deadly cocktail, this mixture of different things, and by the way, I didn't mention something what for me is really crucial. The fact that faced with these problems, with these issues we had to solve, and we were not solving them, quite naturally, politicians like Donald Trump and some others in this global West could perfectly use. If they are self-confident enough, if they are not doubting about themselves, if they have a ego like, not Mr. Trump, this is the specific ego, you never can copy it, but just there are some others who really are illiterate, who doesn't read anything, but they believe that they have a true, and they are not doubting about it. This is the Dunning-Kruger effect, you know, the opposite of Socrates. So these people are now more and more visible and taking power in different countries, and well, this is something what we see that extremes are prevailing. And this is, for me, this is really the problem. That after the extreme from the leftist Democrats, this woke part of it, we have another extreme in the United States, but also we can see it in Europe, we can see it everywhere in our civilization, in democratic world. In autocratic regimes, you see just the autocracy, but in free world, you can see that these extremes are getting more and more vital and aggressive. And pendulum is moving from one side to the other side, and I'm just hoping that in one moment it would stop in the middle. But it would take some time, and afterward, and before that, I'm afraid that we would really suffer a lot. So, but by nature, I'm optimist. You know, this is quite hard for me to say that, but I believe that we have to take it seriously. The situation here in our world is not nice, and I would urge to every serious politicians and citizens to see it and to take it seriously. Otherwise, as we are the country of Karel Čapek, among others, and this is what, when I'm asking students, when I'm debating with students, if they read The War with Blocks, this is to Válka, Nudes, yeah, Válka's Bloky, yeah, or the other novels of Karel Čapek, they didn't read it. So I think that this is something what we should also try to do, explain to our people and especially our youth that it's not granted. Our security, our freedom, our values, this is not granted. It's hard to win it, but you can lose it like that, almost over one night, if you don't care it seriously.
Okay, this is a fairly pessimistic picture of the future. I will try to make it a little more optimistic. As an old sinologist, I must say that it's all China's fault, what we have here, including Donald Trump, because it was China's meteoric rise to what it is today that changed the entire world. And I think Donald Trump is just trying to adapt. He's trying to find a position for the United States in the new world that will be totally different. So it's not pessimistic. I praise him for trying the best for the United States, because like you, I like the United States of America. And I think what's good for the United States of America is good for us. So I support him in this gigantic struggle to reintroduce global balance so that we all can enjoy it in the future.
Okay, next question, please. So, lady here, thanks.
Hello, my name is Berlin Schelling, and I was born and raised in the United States but I study at this university. I wanted to ask, this question is a bit related to the last one, but we've seen, especially in the second Trump administration, how Republicans have largely backed the president and are not seeming to dissent like they might have in his first term. So I wanted to ask how you think the MAGA or Make America Great Again movement will continue after Trump is gone. Do you see any current Republican figures that could potentially take that place? Do you see it dissipating? I just want to know your thoughts. Thank you.
Maybe Martin didn't speak for some time, so you can start.
Oh, that's a difficult one. Of course, we are talking about J.D. Vance, right? He seems to be positioned to be the crown prince of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, as was mentioned, is careful not to rule out the third term, but at the same time isn't saying he's running. I just watched the interview he gave yesterday, day before yesterday, or CBS. When he asked about that, he said, "We don't talk about it. We don't discuss it. There's no need." And mentioned that there's J.D. Vance, there's Marco Rubio, there are other people. I don't think Marco Rubio has this position in the MAGA base. I really don't see anyone from Trump's orbit who could overshadow J.D. Vance as far as he's playing it now. It would have to be someone different, someone from the outer reaches, further from the White House. Let's say Steve Bannon or something like that, typically as a type. But I think in the Trump circle proper. And J.D. Vance is an enigma to me. I am as much as he should be legible. I mean, he published a book, very interesting, even before he was in politics. He talks a lot, addresses himself to various issues. I'm never certain what he thinks. I think he's simply there's no doubt in my mind that he doesn't mean seriously everything he says. What he says is very calculated to shore up the MAGA base as he feels, as far as he feels where the power is, where the energy is right now. It may the situation may change, but he would be able to change with it. And there's certainly, MAGA is here to stay. I don't see what would replace it. There's so-called never Trump Republicans or conservatives in the older mold. They don't have the numbers, they don't have the energy, they don't have a base among young people. People don't have the feeling that they are searching for something, discovering something. They are now fighting a retrograde battle, sort of destined to extinction, I'm afraid. So let's watch J.D. Vance.
Maybe Ondřej?
Second Ondřej, yes, he's the one. Yes.
I'm second here. No, I think Martin Weiss put it very, very well. What I think many of my colleagues here call chaos is more properly, I think, called uncertainty, which Trump understands perhaps better than anyone else. And I think J.D. Vance's reticence and careful, he's extremely calculating. He's a lawyer, after all, Yale-educated lawyer, very careful with not making any mistake. And I agree that I don't see anyone else on the Trump side either. One thing we haven't mentioned is that we are in day 36 of what's called the government shutdown in the US. In fact, I'm surprised it hasn't come up yet. It's causing a lot of problems because museums are closed, national parks are closed, air controllers refuse to go to work because they're not getting paid. It's basically a situation where the government is refusing or is unable to fulfill its obligations. And the big question, political question, is whether Americans will blame the party in power or the Democrats for causing this, because it's the Democratic Senate and Congress that are refusing to extend the debt ceiling, effectively to create print money to pay some of the obligations. Now, from a legal point of view, there's no way that the government could fail to pay. It will happen. But the politics around it are fascinating. And in fact, I'm surprised that the Democrats have chosen to do this. The Republicans used to do this quite often. Most Americans yawn because it happens every 5 years or 4 years with no consequence. And yet, it's capable of causing a lot of trouble for Thanksgiving, for Christmas, if people aren't unable to fly where they want to. I suspect that both sides will cave, but my guess would be that the Democrats will be probably shamed and pay a bigger political price than the Republicans, though we will have to wait and see. There are many people who believe that within a week after the elections, which are taking place today, this issue will be settled.
And I would not forget Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. They're not gone. They might be coming back. So.
Okay. Lady with glasses. Sorry.
Hi, my name is Daisy Sindelar, and I was also born and raised in the United States, but I have now lived most of my life in Europe, first in Russia and then in the Czech Republic. This is an astonishing conversation to me. I feel as though I am hearing about a country that I barely recognize, and I have a comment and then I have a question. My comment is to just general remarks about whether Trump is a chaos agent, whether he delivers on his promises, whether his promises have been clear from the beginning. And I would point out 2 examples where I think he has been not clear, nor has he delivered on his promises in ways that are quite significant. And the first is Ukraine. He promised very early on, both in his campaign and post-inauguration, that this was a simple matter that would be resolved within weeks. We now see that that is not the case, and nor is it likely to be resolved anytime soon. That is significant not only for the United States, but for people here and in Central and Eastern Europe. The other is that he promised to lower consumer prices for average Americans, and we are seeing the opposite of that happening right now. I am glad that the shutdown came up, but I think also we're talking about a robust stock market as being equivalent to a healthy economy, and that is not the case. There are many average Americans who are struggling to put food on the table, to live safely, to have adequate health care. And these are things that are maybe not apparent from the outside, but they very much shape the domestic conversation, and they are important. Trump has not acknowledged them, but he has held some marvelous parties at Mar-a-Lago and redesigned bathrooms and things along those lines. So my question is this. I am a long-time employee of an organization that is based here in the Czech Republic that is Radio Free Europe. I was the editor-in-chief and worked there for 20 years. This is an organization, along with Voice of America and others, that is struggling for its existence and struggling for the right to provide journalism and news on the ground to the countries of the former Soviet Union, Afghanistan, Iran, and others, that has basically been threatened with total defunding by the Trump administration. This seems to run completely counter to what we would call traditional republicanism. Radio Free Europe always enjoyed a very healthy bipartisan support, but most strongly from people like John McCain and others who really saw its value in this part of the world. Another thing that hasn't come up in this conversation today is the overnight dismantling of USAID. And this leads me to my question, which is, for any distinguished member of the panel, where is the conversation about soft power in this new Trump world? We seem to be very transactional. I've heard some mention of values. Values also comes with a safe social net. It comes with a robust media environment. It comes with various forms of protection that no longer seem to be part of the central conversation. With the dismantling of USAID, we can assume that the US is not interested in participating in this conversation anymore. With Europe being asked to step up its defense spending, I think it's reasonable to assume they will also have less money to spend on these soft power concerns. So my question to all of you is soft power still part of this conversation or not? Thank you.
Thank you. So if the question is from all the panelists, so we would start like with Petr now, and please be brief because we will have to wrap it up.
Soft power.
Yeah. Well, I think that the problem is that the current Trump's administration didn't take the soft power as the right power and as something what is the instrument for the better world, and they don't take it as investments. They think that these money are somewhere disappearing in the black hole, and this is, of course, they are the taxpayers, American taxpayers' money, so that they should take care of it better. I have a different view. I think that this is the best way how to invest the taxpayers' money to prevent some countries from being autocratic or totalitarian, or to prevent some dictators to actually expand their power. Because if we can use the soft power as a journalism is, or the culture ways, how to help people to understand some problems in complexity, it could really help us to finally live in this illusion of the end of the history. Otherwise, we would be faced with more and more wars and more tragedies and tension. But this is, of course, well, who am I to tell it to the President of the United States? Of course, well, it happened to me not long time ago when one elderly lady from the United States, native Czech, who lives from 68 in Florida, she called me and said, "Please, Peter, could you tell Mr. Trump," and I like him very much, she told, "I like him very much, could you tell him that what he's doing with Russia and Ukraine and with the Radio Free Europe and Voice of America, it's not correct." She thought that I really have his phone number and then I could call him. You know, but unfortunately, maybe fortunately, I don't have it.
Okay, so others, please read it briefly.
I'm all in favor of any power, especially soft, but I think the trouble is that the US administration today is unable to fund even national public radio in the States. The PBS, public broadcasting, they don't see the rate of return, to put it simply, okay? List it on the stock market and make it into a Trump meme coin We could also have talked about the corruption of the current administration with cryptocurrency, which is probably worth a separate conference. Soft power, yes, on paper it sounds nice. It's nice to do. The US has been doing it since World War II. And the current administration simply believes that it's a waste of money. On a positive note, I believe the European Union is stepping up and is funding your organization to the tune of 200 million euros. Is that incorrect? So it's not as if Radio Free Europe is sort of destined to disappear. At least I would hope not. Yes, I mean, power has many different venues, and it's up to the executive to choose which ones to push and which ones to not push. I would tend to agree with you that if we hope to produce citizens that are capable of making judgments, we need to educate them, and I don't know how to achieve that. I think it's a very, very difficult problem. I have taught in my life, and I can tell you that critical thinking is very difficult to achieve, as far as I can tell, at any level. So good luck to you. I hope the European Union does step up and that you are able to continue to be a source of reliable information and a very interesting point of view.
Okay, I will have to defend Donald Trump a little bit about the promises and things he did deliver or not. About the prices, consumer prices, I heard the interview. I recommend 60 Minutes. It was this weekend. And he's asked precisely that question. What about the promise of the lower consumer prices? And of course, he's lying a little bit and he says, oh, it's okay, it's still the same. But then he says, the price of gas is down. Is it true? Yes. There you go. So he did deliver on consumer prices, at least in this. And you know, the great thing about America is that we will see very soon whether he succeeds or not, because he had his big, beautiful bill approved, so he has no alibi. He has to deliver, and that's what the midterms will be all about.
Oh, yeah. Last sentence. Big and beautiful, as Donald Trump says. I think the concept of soft power sort of degenerated during the last decades. Soft power emanates from the United States through Silicon Valley, through look at the artificial intelligence now. This is something driven by the United States. Everybody has to pay attention to it. Everybody understands this will change the world now. This is American soft power. USAID finance a bunch of soft power organizations that I don't think should be the business of United States to finance, either from the point of view of American taxpayer or from the point of view of recipient countries. I believe American taxpayers agree that USAID should do humanitarian aid, not finance organizations of like, let's say, women in media, which was in the Czech Republic, an outfit that did seminars where women grumbled how hard it is to work in the media. Now Radio Free Europe has been doing good work, and so it's on a case-by-case basis. I hope there will be found a way to finance it. NPR, I understand it's able to survive with private donations pretty well. Just its fans apparently miss that it's not state finance anymore. You know, that little bit of a little small piece of socialism in America is gone, but it will exist again.
Thank you very much, Martin. Unfortunately, we will have to close it. If there is some time with the moderators, you can ask them privately the question after we finish. I would like to thank all the panelists, Ondřej, Jonáš, investment banker and an American, Petr Kolář, consultant and advisor to president, Ondřej, Jonáš, Ondřej Hejma, musician, and thanks for playing or being Trumpian in this debate. And Martin Weiss from Echo 24, journalist, and my name is Jan Macháček. So thanks all of you for coming, and I would like to thank also Anglo-American University for organizing this with us, to director of the university, Jiří Schwarz also, and thanks all of you for coming, and we are looking forward to see you at some similar occasion. So thanks for coming again.